BetOnline.ag lists the Pittsburgh Steelers as 2.5-point favorites on Sunday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys. If you want to get in on the Week 5 action, BetOnline.ag is the place to do it. Use our promo code, that is Bleav, that's BLEAV. You can see that on your screen right now to get started over at BetOnline.ag. BetOnline, the game starts here. Let's get to today's guest. Welcome into Bleav in Steelers. My name is Mark Bergin. We had to keep it in the Bleav family. He is the host of Bleav in Cowboys, former Dallas Cowboys receiver, Jesse Holley. Jesse, good to be talking with you. We've got Steelers and Cowboys Sunday Night Football in Week 5, just chopping it up before the pod, getting the workouts in. We'll talk some about your connection with Michael Irvin on 4th and Long, but it is good to see you. Welcome into Bleav in Steelers and Bleav in Cowboys, a special cross-pod edition.
No, absolutely, man. It's good to be here. I'm excited. I feel like I've been saying this week in and week out, another big week for the Cowboys. They have to find a way to come up with the victory, or this thing will get ugly around here in Cowboy Nation real fast.
Yeah, I don't know whether to thank you personally, Jesse, but thank you for having Micah Parsons. Lawrence is going to be out with an injury as well. I'm not going to wish injuries upon anyone, but hey, that helps this Steelers offense that's also banged up along the offensive line.
Yeah, we're hoping that that Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, whoever you decide to start at quarterback, that they revert back to the very old self and just turn the ball over and throw the ball away and do things like that, because we couldn't stop people with Tank and with Michael on the field. So I don't know what we're gonna do with them both being off the field for an extended period of time now.
Yeah, it's gonna be Fields. And that was the knock on him coming into Pittsburgh, is that he held the ball a little bit too long. He was turnover prone. He seems to be making the most of his opportunity. Mike Tomlin in year 18 knows better than I do, Jesse, of, each week it's the same. I'm calling it a facade, but, Russell's not good enough to go, and he's still somewhat limited in practice. Why Fields isn't named the outright starter, I don't know. Again, Mike Tomlin knows what he's doing. He's in year 18. He hasn't had a losing season. But it's going to be Fields, and Fields has made the most of his opportunity this season. And remember, both he and Wilson on one-year deals with the Pittsburgh Steelers this season.
When you look at, what Mike Tomlin has to do going forward, this is it. Yes, I have to find a quarterback for this year, but I'd like to find a quarterback for the future. And Justin Fields would be the one, just age-wise, that can carry this thing going forward. So if he's playing well and he can have the reps, he gives you a component that Russell Wilson doesn't give you at this point in time right now, which has become kind of a thing of the National Football League, where I have a very, 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 very mobile quarterback who, when he's right, he can throw the football all over the park. And you add that dimension into it, like we just saw a guy, 2 weeks ago in Lamar Jackson. You add that running ability to it. Now you make defenses have to play legitimately 11-on-11 football, and you add that threat of tucking the ball, pulling the ball down, and running for shoot. You can take a 5-yard gain, a 15-yard gain, and he has the will to take a 50-yard gain. So. It's been an interesting ride for Justin Fields, but this also shows you that coaching matters, right? You go from one situation where they just can't seem to figure you out. You come to a more stable situation, a situation and I'm sure, I never met Mike Tomlin, fan of Mike Tomlin. He seemed like a dude that just sits you down and go, listen, dude, here's what I need. I don't need this, and this. I need you to be this person. If you can be this guy for us, I'll handle the rest. And when you have that comfortability and that level of, you're not worried about having to be a Superman, you're not worried about having to put the team on your shoulders, that I can incrementally grow into this quarterback thing, I would like to believe it makes you a better football player.
I want to go back to something you said about the 11-on-11. From a player standpoint, how much harder is that to defend, to have to account for a quarterback's mobility compared to the style of play when you were in the league, Jesse?
It's a headache. I came up when, it was a rarity. Michael Vick came along, and you saw how Michael Vick just kind of turned the league on its head, because you couldn't, at times could not put a game plan together to contain him, right? If you want to go man-to-man coverage, well, when everyone's running down the field, he takes off, the defensive back is turned. So, and then now you have to give a guy, they do now have to have a spy on a guy. Well, now you've literally taken a guy and he can't rush, he can't play coverage. He's just standing in the middle of the field hoping that the quarterback doesn't run. So it's a dynamic thing, and it's a backbreaker. It's a backbreaker when your defense wants to get off the field on third down, or and this quarterback breaks the pocket. And because most linebackers, when it comes to that, they're sometimes a little bit bad when it comes to angles. The really, really good ones are able to do a good enough job to it. But for the most part, a lot of those guys get beat to the corners, and third downs get picked up. And those are the back-breaking plays right there. When you've been on the field for 8, 9, 10 plays, and you get to a 3rd and 5, and he breaks containment and gets a first down, that's a backbreaker. That's demoralizing to the defense, and I think that's what hurts defenses nowadays, because these quarterbacks have cannon of arms, and they can run like cheetahs.
And it's Fields' ability to run the ball, compounded by the fact that the Steelers have had a ton of injuries along the offensive line. I'll run through them really quickly. Nate Herbig, who was supposed to be your starting center, torn rotator cuff, out for the year. Troy Fautanu, your first-round pick, might have been in the mix at the tackle position, out for the season with the knee injury. Isaac Seumalo, who could play this week, he's been out with the pectoral injury. Dylan Cook, foot injury. James Daniels, your starting right guard, out for the year with the torn Achilles. Fields' mobility helps negate that. And Russell Wilson in year 13, they say National Football League. No. The NFL is not for long. It is a young man's sport. It's no knock on Russell Wilson, but you bring him in coming off an injury. I'd rather keep it with Fields. And what they've done with Fields, Jesse, is this. In all 4 games this season, the Steelers have won time of possession. And so for as dominant as this defense has been in 3 of the 4 games, Colts had Pittsburgh's number in week 4, but it's been keeping the defense off the field. And what that does is, we're playing great defense. Well, you're not stuck on the field for long periods of time. That's been huge. And it's Fields' ability to pick up 3, 4, 5 yards at a time. Even if they're not getting first downs, it's keeping the clock running and playing a ball control offense to help play that complementary football. It's a cliche, but it's how the Steelers have won 3 of their 4 games this year.
No, I'm with you 100%. Here in Dallas, we're kind of like in the phase of, hey, Dak, you got to tuck the ball, run a little bit more, buddy. We don't have a good running game. We can't get the running game going. The offensive line is, while healthy, is not really good for the Cowboys right now. So, I know that we're asking you to throw the ball all across the field and to find open receivers who don't have open windows of creating separation right now. And so the fans and the media and people are crying for Dak to, hey, sometimes you got to tuck the ball and run. And that's not a style that he kind of is. He just doesn't want to do it anymore. Like, he just, older in age, he had the really, horrific ankle injury. He'll be mobile in the pocket, but he doesn't want to pull the ball down and go and rush for 45, 55 yards in a game. He much rather sit in the pocket and try to deliver the football. So to a young man's game perspective, that's what you have in Justin Fields, where he'll tuck that thing and go get the yards that he can when things aren't available to him.
Yeah, and I get it from Dak's standpoint, because I'm looking at this from an opposing team standpoint, where it's like, okay, we got to know where CeeDee Lamb is on the field. I know you've got a solid tight end, but other than that, it's like in the Steelers offense can be the same way, where you got Pickens and Freiermuth. But other than that, it's like, there's more left to be desired, where if we're picking up the sticks and playing Madden, it's like, it's no knock on any of the guys, but what is your counteraction to when a team brackets a receiver like a CeeDee Lamb, like a George Pickens, to take them away? What's your counter to that? What's your counter to keep the clock moving? I want to ask you this about, you mentioned the running game. Do the Cowboys miss Tony Pollard?
Yes. They miss anybody that has juice. Like this running back room just doesn't have juice. And, oddly enough, there's, the league is full of trends, right? Like it's like fashion. Things come in style, things go out of style, only for things to come back in style 10, 15 years later. And this is one of those times where the running back had kind of went out of style and no one really cared about the running back. And now this year seems more so than ever that the running back has kind of come back into the fold of things. The passing yards are down more than it's been in the last 10 years in a passing league. And now you're looking for a running back to kind of sustain your offense a little bit, and the Cowboys don't have one. They don't have the juice in Zeke Elliott, who was brought back for whatever reason. I don't know. Deuce Vaughn is a nice project that the Cowboys did, but Deuce Vaughn isn't the answer. And then the one guy you have in Rico Dowdle, he's a decent back, but no one looks at Rico Dowdle and go, oh boy, we really got to prepare for Rico Dowdle. So the Cowboys and then now you have an offensive line where, God bless Zach Martin, who has been just a stalwart at the right guard position. But Father Time waits for no man and is undefeated. Yeah. And you're starting to see the ill effects of Father Time on him. Terrence Steele is a guy who, you don't know what player you're going to get with him from series in and series out. Cooper Beebe is battling. Tyler Smith is your left guard. Your left guard who's been playing the best football on your team. And then Tyler Guyton has been your project this year, your first-round left tackle. And when you put all that together and you're trying to have a running game, it doesn't go well. And then you don't have the backs in the backfield that can go out and make a play and make a guy miss and make yardage where there is no yardage on a consistent basis. And that's just it's a bad look for the Cowboys, and it's been spanking them and hurting them all year.
I would think the best way to get a line going is establishing the running game and putting your body weight moving forward. If Zeke can't find the fountain of youth, Rico gets going. I would use Vaughn. We loved him out of Kansas State. A lot like another Kansas State runner, Darren Sproles, to where you got to get him in space, but between the tackles, just for someone of that size and stature, probably not his game. So that's how I see that. But they've got to get someone going because, again, I know what to expect from Dak and CeeDee. They both just got paid, too, to where had they been in contract season, psychologically, a guy is going to ball out in a contract season. But I see these first few weeks where it's like the 2 wins Dallas has, it's like the teams that they beat aren't very good, Jesse.
No, they aren't. And we kind of almost put the Giants on our schedule and we're saying, all right, there's 2 wins that we'll get, from the Giants.
You would think.
And that's just been, Dak has won 12 in a row against 13 in a row against the New York Football Giants. But to your point, those 2 guys are playing decent football. But again, most teams been playing the percentages now. They're saying, okay, if you guys are just going to have this, 1-2 punch between you two, we'll just play the percentage. We'll just let you methodically move the ball down the field, and eventually we'll either get to the quarterback because they can't hold up. They'll get a penalty. You'll throw into a window that a guy drops it or whatever, and that's been the winning formula. Like even the win last week against the Giants, it was a hard win. Like our offense has been straining for every single inch this year. And a big part of the reason when you look at what the Cowboys are doing offensively, it's, in my opinion, it's the inability for your offensive coordinator to adjust to the 24th century and what offenses are nowadays. And Mike McCarthy, and I was one who championed for Mike McCarthy to come here when he was fired at Green Bay. But I've soured on him myself because you have a quarterback, you have a stud wide receiver, you've had offensive lines, and they've had to. The way that I put it the other day was, Dak Prescott has been competing in the 100-meter freestyle with a 100-pound Mike McCarthy anchor tied to his ankle. Ooh. Right? Like because he's good enough to compete, but boy, if you just freed him of this old archaic offense and gave him some of the youth that you see this new offense with the pre-snap motions and the creativities and the ability to get these receivers open, you would think that he would be able to take his game to another level. It just hasn't been that, and everything that we've seen thus far this season from Dak Prescott in this offense has been an absolute strain, and that makes it even more worrisome when you go into a game week like against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So how does this play out with McCarthy? Because he's had several seasons in a row with double-digit wins, And then come playoff time, Dallas can't quite get it done. I know everyone always points to, well, 95 was the last time the Cowboys made the conference championship game. How do you see this playing out, Jesse?
Yeah, I think Mike McCarthy is dead man walking. And this I don't say the sad part about it, because I mean he's had more than enough opportunity. He gets paid a boatload of money. But you don't have a team that's going to compete this year for a championship, and you might not have a team that actually makes the playoffs. And 12-5, 12-5, 12-5, but first round exits. While regular season is great, it just doesn't hold the weight anymore. And some people will say in these parts that, Jerry's kind of organically tanking, right? He got the contracts done late. So there's a boatload of money that you're looking at. They're saying they're going to carry into next season. That may be if the season doesn't go well, you'll have a higher draft pick. So you'll have a higher draft pick. You have a bunch of money in, that you're carrying over from last year into next year to go with whatever the cap will be next year. And you're probably going to hire a new head coach, because it's feeling like Mike McCarthy is losing his effectiveness in the locker room and on the football field for this team.
We've been critical of the offense. We've been critical of the relationship with, say, McCarthy and Dak. Defensively, you lose Dan Quinn to the Commanders, who's your DC for the last several years. I know Parsons is now injured. I know Lawrence is now injured. But what have been the issues defensively? Because we've been super critical of the offense, but really this defense has been problematic for the Cowboys through the first 4 weeks of the 2024 season.
It's been the same thing, the same problem that the Cowboys had defensively for the last 10 years. It's rinse and repeat. The Cowboys have not been able to stop the run. And it's been something that has been addressed in the bargain bin, at the Dollar Tree, at the Dollar General. It hasn't been, and they tried to put a resource in it with Mozzie Smith, who had his best game of his career last week against the New York Giants, who has one of the worst offensive lines in football. But hopefully that's a start. But this, they just won't throw the proper amount of respect and money into the middle of that defense. Again, what Dan Quinn had last year, talk about not having many linebackers and playing safeties at linebackers. And the Cowboys they just been beat up defensively. And, sometimes you want to have a little bit of sympathy for a guy like Mike Zim, but Zim knew what he was getting into. There's no dummy. He knew what this roster looked like when he got it. He still signed his name on the dotted line. He still accepted the direct deposit. And we thought when Zim came in, he promised everything that this defense would be more disciplined. This defense would be it would be more ferocious. It would be more tough. Like all of these things he lined out when he came here. And we honestly, at the beginning, it was the one shining piece of hope that we had. Like, you know what? Zim's an old school guy, no nonsense kind of guy. This team's going to be boom, 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 boom. And we get to the season and all you hear about, this defense is undisciplined. This defense is playing hero ball. This defense is playing Superman ball. This defense can't stop a nosebleed. And you're like, wait, everything that this dude said that he was going to do when he came here, he's done none of it. He's done none of it. And, and what an absolute embarrassment when you had to call, you pull out your football Rolodex and you're saying, let me call up Jordan Phillips and let me call up Linval Joseph. And those guys come out here and they get pushed around. There was this big fuss about Linval Joseph going on the IR with the wrist injury because Jordan Phillips going on the IR for wrist injury. And Jordan Phillips says, I'm not hurt. They put me on IR, but I'm not hurt. But when you watch the film, you were getting pushed off the ball 8, 9, and I'm not exaggerating. Like, I am not exaggerating. He was getting pushed off the ball 8, 9 yards by Cesar Ruiz of the Saints multiple times, right? And so this defense is a bad, bad, bad defense.
When you talk about being able to run the ball, to me, that's the point of attack, A gap, B gap. And if you can't establish that, it almost negates what you can get off the edge from Micah Parsons. Now, I know that the Cowboys move Parsons around, match him up against whoever the weakest offensive linemen, create matchup problems. But I think about how good he could be if he has that on the interior. The luxury TJ Watt has had in his career in Pittsburgh, matching up against opposing right tackles, is that he's got Cam Hayward on the inside, and they've been quite a duo. Cam Hayward gets his respect in Pittsburgh, but league-wide, I don't think he gets the recognition he deserves, but it's because he can establish the point of attack at the line of scrimmage. You have to know where TJ Watt's on the field. You have to chip him. You have to give an opposing right tackle help. Otherwise, he's going to make an opposing offense's lives a living hell. But he's able to do that because he has help with, say, a Cam Hayward opposite him and Alex Highsmith, who will not play in this Week 5 game due to a groin injury. But when I hear that, I hear A gap, B gap. Some people call them the big uglies, Jesse. I call them the big sexies up front, but it's where games are won and lost in the NFL.
No, the trenches are absolutely where they're won and lost. And to your point, Micah was supposed to, Zim was supposed to come in and have all these different packages for Micah Parsons. And of course, the Mike Zimmer defense, the double A gap blitz, right? Well, guess what? You never get a chance to get to the double A gap blitz when you're consistently giving up 6 yards a carry. There is no third downs and longs. There's no opportunities. There's no opportunities to move Micah around. That has been the problem. That has literally been the problem, is that teams have said, like, when Lamar Jackson and Derek Carr combined for in 2 games for the total passing attempts to be 31. In 2 games, one passes the ball 15 times, the other one passes the ball 16 times. There is no opportunity for Micah to be moved around. You get stuck out there at the defensive end position, and he got, 2 hands in the dirt. That's not where Micah belongs, right? He's at 240 pounds, and, they're just running at him. They're just running at him all day long. And what you're really good at is being able to put pressure on the quarterback by moving Micah around. There is no pressure on the quarterback because they're saying it's 3rd and 1 or it's second and 5. Cool. 1st and 10. Right. And so that's been the biggest issue for this Cowboys defense. They had a little bit of a chance last week against Daniel Jones to put him in some of those situations. But even still, Daniel Jones were very comfortable in the pocket last week. He wasn't rushed. Thank God that Daniel Jones isn't an accurate quarterback and can't throw the ball down the football field, because he had about 2 or 3 throws where his receivers had beat the Cowboys DBs. And if he could throw the ball a little bit down the field, they probably win that football game, right? And so, the one thing that you have in Micah Parsons, the ability for him to be a wreak havoc in the pass rush game. You don't get to the pass rush game. They said, you have to earn the right to pass rush. They literally have not earned the right to pass rush.
As a former player, Cowboys are coming off playing on Thursday night, get more time to prepare, more rest. What's that like from a player standpoint to have more than just the typical 7 days from Sunday to Sunday?
Thank God it happened after a win, right? Because if they had lost against the Giants, it would have been hell around these parts for players and coaches. But yeah, to get that rest, man, initially you get that. It's almost a mini bye. And that's the one thing that a lot of times people fail to realize, just the rest portion of it, just to not have to do football stuff. So you get a couple days to kind of just rest, get your body right, get your mind right, have a win. And now you get to enter a week of not having to necessarily, undo the defeat of last week. Now I can build off the winning things that we did a week ago, instead of having to come in and talk about, all right, guys, the details. Let's learn how to tie our shoe again. Let's learn what an A gap is. Let's learn what this is. Let's learn what that is. Now you can come into this week and you can actually go in to the game plan with the feel good, body rested, a little bit of motivation, a little bit of happiness and enthusiasm, and hopefully try to find a way. Even though you're down 2 of your best players on defense, just try to find a way to put something together to go out there and win.
Hey, if you can't figure out the bunny ears, maybe Velcro's the way to go, Jesse.
Boy, let me tell you.
It's not every day I get to talk to a former NFL receiver. Davante Adams has requested a trade. Pittsburgh's among the teams potentially get traded to. We heard it all with the Brandon Ayuk saga, which, led to his contract extension. Where do you think Davante Adams winds up after the dust is settled between now and the November trade deadline?
It feels like, he's making, what we say the, hey, big head, text to Aaron Rodgers, right? Get back with Aaron Rodgers, because I think after he left Green Bay, you sometimes realize, boy, that I leave something special. So that seems like the right thing that to happen. But then again, you remember that, Kansas City's down a receiver now too. And those are guys who are always willing to push the envelope. They're all in. As we try to say around here, a team like Kansas City will be all in Davante Adams. There are a bunch of teams that I think that will take a chance on Davante. The Cowboys need another receiver, but I there's a better chance of me going out there and being a Pro Bowl receiver than we do to have to sign Davante Adams. They say we couldn't afford Derrick Henry and we can't afford certain things. So I'm sure that we won't be able to afford Davante Adams.
It makes a lot of sense. And I mean, can you imagine that duo, Wilson and Adams on the outside for Rodgers? Be like, hey, Rodgers, just toss it up. They're going to come down with it.
I mean, at least for a year. I mean, at least give it a go for a year and try to. I mean, there would have to be some contract things because he's owed a ton of money in the next couple of years. But Davante Adams with a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes or anybody like that, that definitely makes your football team a serious contender. I've even heard talks about possibly Washington. You add Davante Adams to with Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin, and that now makes a very, very formidable 1-2-3 punch in Washington, and that even makes my hair even more gray having to now deal with a guy like that in our division.
The Chiefs are interesting because he and Worthy would make an interesting combo. I know they've had injuries. Rashee Rice, we'll see how much time he misses, if not the entire season. To go in the division would surprise me, just considering both of those teams play in the same division. I'm not saying it's impossible.
Right.
I've heard the Washington rumors too, and certainly they're off to a great start with Daniels, but we'll see what this happens. And in Pittsburgh, it's just kind of rinse and repeat. I'm of the opinion General Manager Mark Khan and his price didn't budge. And the litmus test I've used, Jesse, was when the Bears in the offseason traded for Keenan Allen. Now, Keenan Allen's 32, multiple-time Pro Bowler, has had some injury issues, but the Bears got him for a fourth-round pick. So during all the Brandon Ayuk trade rumors, it was like, and you see, okay, who's leaking these reports? And it's like, well, they want a first-round pick from him. It's like, great, that's coming from San Francisco directly because of the price point. And so that's what I think about it. And when I saw the reports yesterday for Adams, second rounder, maybe something else as well that you could throw in that trade and you could possibly get Adams. But if the Raiders aren't going to compete this year, and there's a lot of time between now and next month, so you got another 4 games or so. If you're going to be sellers at the deadline, I'm fascinated to see how this plays out with Adams.
Yeah, and Davante, and you can throw in who's one of my favorite receivers in the league, Amari Cooper. The Cleveland Browns have basically said, we're going to make this so tantalizing for anybody that wants Amari Cooper that we're going to move this money into a signing bonus, and he's going to count less than $1 million against your cap this year. And that's pennies on the dollar for a receiver who I think is one of the best route runners in the game. So, if you're a team, and again, you talk about New York, you talk about the Jets, you talk about the Chiefs, you talk about teams like that, the Washington, teams who are willing and ready to compete right now, and maybe even the Pittsburgh Steelers, adding a guy like Amari Cooper to your roster only improves it. If
you can get 1,000 yards every year.
Yeah.
Every year.
If you can get him in your roster, that is a playmaker. That's a guy who's going to be open. That's a guy who can still show younger guys in your offense how to do certain things from the wide receiver position. He's one of my favorite guys to watch run routes. He even nicknamed himself the route god, and I'm perfectly fine with that when you watch him run routes. So Amari Cooper being available, again, that's another guy who people are saying, bring him back to Dallas. And I tell people, Amari didn't leave for business reasons. Amari was sent away for personal reasons, and that's not going to bring him back. That wasn't a business decision. That was him and Jerry, not seeing eye to eye over the COVID situation and the needle and all that kind of good stuff back then, getting the vaccine. That's why he was sent away. So when Jerry made it personal, that pretty much ends all of a guy like Amari Cooper coming back.
He puts up 1,000 yards every year and we forget about him, and they do the top 10 receivers each year. And I see the Madden ratings come out for the new game each year. And it's just like, oh, Amari Cooper's in the 90s again. Let me check out what he did the year before. Oh, another 1,000-yard season. It's like he and Mike Evans are the two most consistent guys. And from Cleveland's standpoint, like, look, we play them twice a year in the division, Pittsburgh. I'm still at a loss for why they continue to play Watson when Jameis Winston's just waiting in the wings. I'm telling you, the longer they play Watson, I'm like, bravo, kudos, like, because on the field, it's just like, I look at this from the opposing team standpoint. They ran Baker Mayfield out of town, and he was playing with that damn shoulder harness, and he was playing injured. The organization didn't protect him. Yet now you're bending over backwards to try to make it work with Deshaun Watson. It hasn't worked in Cleveland. It just hasn't. Let me get us back on track, though, unless you got something.
No, we're good. No.
I got to ask you about playing for the Cowboys. I know you were on the show 4th and Long with Michael Irvin. Before we get into Michael Irvin and your best memories with him, is how did you even learn about that there was going to be a reality show to try out for the Dallas Cowboys? How did you first learn about that? Because this is a program I watched as a kid back in the day.
Oh, thanks for making me feel old. Thank you for making me feel old. A program that you watched when you were a kid. That's wow. But it's the story of be nice to people, right? Like, be nice to people because you never know when people will be willing to help you. And I found out about 4th and Long because I was 2 years removed out of the University of North Carolina, and a guy by the name of Kevin Bess, who was the PR director at UNC. And they was reaching out, the company were reaching out to universities trying to find players. And they called UNC. And Kevin Best said, I later found out that Kevin Best says, I have the guy for you. And he's like, and they asked Kevin, they said, there's anyone else? He said, I promise you won't need another guy. And he said, this guy has everything that you need on the field skills and the personality be in front of a camera. And Kevin then called me a couple of days later. He said, hey, Jess, I wanted to let you know that I gave your information to these people. They'll be giving you a call. And it was just the fact that Kevin thought enough about me in that moment in time to give my name. And I was the only name. Like, Kevin Best had been at UNC for over 20 years. Like, just let that sink in for a second. He was at a university. He was the football PR director for over 20 years. Do you know how many football players come through in 20 years? Like, we're talking thousands of football players. And Kevin Best gave one name and one name only, and that was my name. And so that's how I found out about 4th and Long. That's how they found out about me, was from Kevin Best.
That had to have been something too, Jesse, because I know you also played basketball there too. So I don't want to speak for Kevin, but he had to have conversation within the UNC athletics department to know, hey, not only this guy getting it done on the gridiron, you are the national championship basketball team too, with Sean Maid, Raymond Felton, and Rashad McCants. And it was just like the two-sport athlete. That's something that not a lot of people could say.
No, it's to make myself feel old again, we recently just had our 20-year reunion of the 2005 national championship team. Early September, I was back in Chapel Hill, and all the guys were back together again to celebrate and to remember that historic run for us to the championship. But yeah, it was great. And 4th and Long was a journey because I didn't know if I was actually going to make it. I didn't, when they called me, I was out of football. I was basically homeless, and I was working as a security guard in Durham, North Carolina.
Okay, so in the triangle, you don't know this about me, Jesse. I actually live in Raleigh.
Oh, okay.
So I'm very familiar with the triangle. And so when I hear about this, it's just like,
I was working
Wow.
at the Tobacco Roadhouse, I don't know, square. It's right across the street from where the Durham ballpark is at. Durham Bulls ballpark is at.
Yeah, the DBAP.
It's yeah, and so in that area right there, I was the third shift supervisor of that area right there for a company called Allied Barton Security, and that's what I was doing. I would work from 11 at night to 7 in the morning. I would train from 7:30 to 9:30 in this old gym off of Miami Boulevard. It was this old rundown like gym where everything in the gym looked like it was thrown away from other major gyms, and they just like taped it up and repaired it and put it in there. And then I would work at Northgate Mall. I would work at T-Mobile at Northgate Mall from 10 to 3 every single day. That was my schedule.
So
11 at night to 7 in the morning, train from 7:30 to 9:30, work at T-Mobile from 10 to 3.
how long would you do this until you finally got that call for 4th and long?
I was doing that for like almost a year.
Wow.
Almost a year.
Wow.
And I was sleeping on the couch of like on a futon. Legitimately, I was like literally sleeping on the futon at a family friend's house.
So where did they actually film the show, Jesse?
In Dallas.
Okay, so you fly to Dallas, cameras are there. Michael Irvin, as intense as you've ever seen him. What was that like? I mean, I know I'm sure you had coaching. I've read and watched videos about your upbringing, but what was that like when the cameras were on, it was time to perform, to record the series, and then what were your memories of being like there with the other contestants with Michael Irvin?
It was hell. Like legitimately, it was hell because most people think or thought that, oh, these guys stay in this luxury 5-star hotel when they cut the cameras, and we didn't. We lived in the locker rooms of the Cotton Bowl. Like lived in the locker rooms of the Cotton Bowl. We did not leave the Cotton Bowl. We stayed, and they transformed the visitors and home locker rooms of the Cotton Bowls. And they came in and had a company come in, and they made like sections of the locker rooms. We slept 6 and 6, 6 wide receivers, 6 DBs, and our beds were 2 beds head to head, 2 beds head to head, and then 2 beds head to head that way. So, and like the bathroom was right there. We didn't have access. They took away our cell phones. They took away any communication that we had to the outside world. Like we didn't watch TV. We didn't have a radio. We didn't have internet. We didn't have computers. We didn't have iPods. We didn't have iPads. We didn't have our cell phones. It was jail. It was jail for 2 months. And you would film 15, 16 hours a day, whatever the law was at that time, where we filmed. So there's like the cameramen's union. They only allow you to shoot a certain amount of hours before they mandatory they have to rest.
Yeah.
We shot all day long, every single day, 15 hours, 14, 15 hours, 16-hour days.
Do you still keep in contact with any of the other contestants? I know like Andrew Hawkins was on there.
Yeah.
I have a list of guys somewhere here in my notes.
Yeah, I only keep in touch with 2 of the guys. Andrew Hawkins is a really good friend of mine. He and I still communicate. We were texting actually the other day, and another guy named Eddie Moulton, who's a DB there. He's coaching here in Texas. He's coaching at a D3 university. So those are the only 2 guys that I care to keep in contact with. Not that I have anything against the rest of the guys, but I mean, it was a competition. And, I'm still really good friends with Michael Irvin. I work with Nate Newton every single day at DallasCowboys.com. And so, some of those guys I still, have relationships with.
That's very cool. And hey, shout out to Kevin Best as well for even I mean, just to make that opportunity a reality, that's an unbelievable story. It's an unbelievable story. I got to ask you this before we go. When you played at UNC, what is your best Roy Williams story, having played for the legend?
Man, there's
and I want the story. Listen, I want the story that you tell your boys too, not the one where it's like we're on a podcast. So, man,
there's so many, and we got a chance to laugh about a lot of them this past weekend. But I'll give you 2. One was a good one for me, and one was a bad one for me. So we were playing. One of the things that a Carolina tradition is, they always try to play home games for the days are different now because you don't have seniors anymore. Guys are usually they don't make it to their senior year. But if you're kind of a star player and you make it to your senior year, they try to have games in your city so that, close enough to where you can go and your family can come. So for Raymond Felton, we were playing a game in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. He's from South Carolina. And Raymond was a junior, but everybody knew he wasn't coming back next year. So we were playing in a tournament in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And we're playing against Coastal Carolina. I forget the team we were playing against. And Roy and Rashad McCants were just not seeing eye to eye that game. And he's screaming at Rashad about playing defense. And we had this thing at Carolina. If, someone got a steal, someone took a charge, everyone gets off the bench and you cheer. Like if you got caught sitting down, if someone got a steal or someone took a charge, like you were in trouble. And so we had just called a timeout and Roy's like, Rashad, call the defense. Like, I need you to do that. We get back out there. Rashad doesn't do it. And he immediately subs Rashad out. Rashad, and again, when you come off the bench at Carolina, you always sit in the first seat at the top of the bench. Well, Rashad bypassed the first seat and came all the way to the end of the bench to sit next to me. And I was already up cheering. And as I went to sit down, we got a steal. And kind of Roy was coming down the end of the bench where I was at. And everybody's getting up. And I'm on my way to sit down. And when he turned and saw me sitting down and saw Rashad sitting down, he looked and he's like, you, go to the locker room. And he kicked us off the bench. We're on ESPN and you see, of course, the camera's panned to Rashad walking to the locker room and me walking right behind him. And so everyone's like, Rashad McCants is going to the bench. But all my friends and family like, well, why is Jesse going? And then Roy says at halftime, they kicked Rashad off the bench. And I was like, he comes in the locker room. I'm like, why'd you kick me off the bench? And he's like yelling at me. He was like, because you. And I was like, but I wasn't doing that. And then he apologized to me and to the media after the game.
This is during a game. This is during a game.
During a game. The game is going on. He kicked me off the bench. I was guilty by association for sitting next to Rashad, or Rashad sitting next to me because I was already there. He had no business being down there by me anyway. And kicked me off the bench. And so we laughed and joked about that one. But, one of my favorite things about Coach Williams is, and he always reminds me, he says, Jess, and it feels good to hear it because, let's be honest. We have 5 lottery picks on that team, 4 or 5 lottery picks on that team. Raymond
loaded,
Felton, Marvin Williams, Sean May, Rashad McCants. We had 7 guys playing the NBA off that team. And he always tells me, he says, Jesse, you don't understand just how important you were to us to winning that national championship. You like the way that you push Raymond every single day in practice, the way that you went at him, the way that you defended him, Rashad, all these guys. He goes, we don't get that without you. And that's a good feeling. And he says it like he's not like a once in a life. Every time he sees me, he says it. And he treats me as if I was I was a Bob Cousy Award winner. Like if I was, the player of the year, like he treats me like with that. He's already like, I can text coach and he texts me back, right? When he comes in town to do speaking engagements, we meet and we have dinner, just he and I. And so those type of things are, you can't, you don't get that for a guy that people don't respect. And so it was great, man. I could talk for another hour about all the stories that we had, during that time in my time at UNC.
Yeah, the first time I went to a game, I grew up in the Chicago suburbs, Jesse. So for us, Michael Jordan is just revered. You go to a game in Chapel Hill at the Dean Dome, and they have every team has this, but the intro video to get the home crowd hyped. When you have basketball Jesus introducing you with Michael Jordan at the end, it's hard not to get hyped. And like, you might not see this right now, but the hair is standing up on my arm just thinking about it.
I'll give you a quick Michael Jordan story. When I first met Michael Jordan, my freshman year, and you hear Reggie Miller always talk about, he called Michael Jordan Black Jesus, right? And he's like, this dude has this aura around him. And I remember we were getting ready for practice. We were in the weight room getting our pre-practice lift in, and the door opens up inside the weight room, and it felt, I don't know what it feels like to meet Jesus. I haven't met Jesus yet, right? Yeah. But it felt like Jesus walked in the door. Like the room, The air changed. Everything changed. And Mike walks in, and I mean, he's not 7 foot tall, but he felt that way. Like he felt Goliath size. And so we go, he comes in and said, we all run and get ready for practice. We go onto the court. And in Michael Jordan fashion, we end up shooting half court shots, right? Like we end up shooting half court shots with Michael Jordan. I won't tell how that part of the practice ended, because if you know Michael Jordan and anything competition and what comes along with that, yes, that happened. But it was yes with college kids, absolutely. But it was at the end of practice that I got a chance to really I felt like I was sitting in heaven. We in practice, and I'm sitting there at the end of practice, and I'm just watching Michael Jordan shoot 15 to 17 foot jump shots, free throw line extended, right? Back and forth, back and forth. Well, at this time, Phil Ford is at practice.
Legendary UNC guard.
Legendary. At this time, Coach Dean Smith comes out of his office and is on the practice floor.
Everyone is there.
And so Michael is shooting these 15-foot jump shots, and he looks over at Coach Smith, and he said, "Coach, I bet you $100 I can make 10 in a row." And he shoots the one from the left wing. Boom, knocks it down. A couple steps to the right wing. Boom, knocks it down. And Coach Dean Smith yells back at Michael, "I bet you another 100, Michael, that you can't do it left-handed." Michael stops, pauses, looks at Coach, looks at the ball boy, smacks his hand, gets the ball, and like he was born left-handed, he begins to shoot 17-foot jump shots from the free throw line, left-handed. Boom, left side, right side. He knocks 7 in a row down, and then he missed the 10th one. And I just sat there in awe of watching a man shoot left-handed jump shots as if he was left-handed. Not like, you're trying to fix yourself to do it. You're just like, "Oh, okay, give me the ball." And I was like, oh my God, what have I just witnessed? I just witnessed the greatest basketball player to ever live, one of the greatest coaches to ever live, one of the greatest point guards to ever play, and Coach Williams is on the floor at the same time. So that's what it's like to be around UNC and to be in that place at that time.
It's a veteran of the game move by Dean Smith to make him change hands, though.
Yeah. Coach Smith knew. Smith knew. Yeah. He knew.
Jesse, this has been terrific. I know you are the host of Bleav in Cowboys. If there is anything else you need to plug before we wrap here, the floor is yours.
Nah, man. Subscribe to Bleav in the Steelers. Like and subscribe to Bleav in the Cowboys on all your platforms. You can catch me weekly here in the DFW area or nationally, wherever. But I do a show for DallasCowboys.com called Hanging with the Boys with 3-time Super Bowl champion Nate Newton. I have my own podcast called Unfiltered with Jesse Holley. I also do a weekly show called DLLS Cowboys on All City. So you can find me just about anywhere you go when you find your local podcast. So as the young kids say, I'm outside.
He's Jesse Holley. I'm Mark Bergin. Thanks for listening and watching Bleav in Steelers. 5 stars and 5 stars only. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. On YouTube, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button on the Mark Bergin YouTube page and over on the Bleav Network YouTube page. We'll be back here on this feed. NFL Week 5 Sunday Night Football. Cowboys in Steelers. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care and so long, everybody.